got sort of an example about how that essentialising sort of works that we could play with?
Thanks, Rob. I guess I'm not going to an exact example. I think some of the examples you've already given some examples where teachers feel as though perhaps they're quite experienced, they've been around, they've worked with a number of Indigenous kids in the classroom before, and there's some assumptions that they're working with in terms of they know how these kids work.
Yes.
And I think the one that I hear the most would be around Aboriginal kids are kinesthetic. Learners.
Sure, of course. Yeah, okay. Yeah, there's multiple versions of the learning theories out there, aren't they? So, I guess there's often sort of evidence to the contrary that sort of manifests in the space as well, isn't there? That actually Indigenous kids learn in other ways.
Yeah, totally.
So I think some of these things are once you're in a group when different people are reporting on what's going on, then the group sort of discourse can sort of contest some of the stuff, can't they? And some of those things sort of start to look a bit wobbly, and you don't have to do all the talking. Again, when you're working in the way I work, where you've got cross-school professional learning communities with maybe 15 or 20 teachers that are all sort of talking to each other, basically theorising with each other, actually, because I think that's really what we're talking about here. Then some of those sort of ideas that some people are holding on to get some critique from other teachers. That doesn't quite work. Empirically, it's actually not holding up, that idea. So, I don't know. There's you end up in a silly place if you're just trying to sort of hold on to one of those learning style ideas, and that's the thing you flog like a dead horse, isn't it? We're all doing kinesthetic. Yeah, great.
Doesn't everybody like to learn kinesthetically?
Yeah, well, that's right.
All right, so one more question, just changing tack a little bit with that, and thinking about the broader contemporary environment of standardising schooling practices and policies and ideas of guidance. I guess I'd be curious to hear you talk about what you see as some of the constraints or the limitations or concerns that you have with getting culturally responsive schooling up and running and really taking hold within that environment.
As I was saying at the get-go, the key word, and you could. There's some cousins like interculturality. I mean, there's plenty of key words out there that one could foreground here. But when I look in the sort of key policy documents and in the sort of the key jurisdictions around the country, pick or the state education departments or the Australian curriculum, interculturality very weakly developed. And very, very weak exemplars. So for teachers looking for some insight from the sort of policy maker and the policy documents, can't get much grunt. You put culturally responsive into the search engines of all the state jurisdictions, you get nothing apart from Western Australia that has something, which and its version of it's reframed inside of cultural competence, which we find problematic. So it's certainly not a strong version that we're trying to argue for. So it's absent from policy discourse. Maybe on a positive note, through small amount of work that we've been doing in South Australia, the Catholic Education Office, which runs 25% of the schools in South Australia, recently reworked its contemporary version of its sort of multiculturalism policy. I think it's got another title, but for the benefit of the tape. And they've now mandated culturally responsive teaching on the basis of working with us.
Yep.
Now, obviously, there's the implementation problem, but there it is in the text. And more recently, some other colleagues have got education department to put culturally responsive pedagogy in one of its texts. So trying to get the concepts into policy text becomes really important. I gave up thinking that was the only place that one could change things a long time ago, because the sort of critical scholars haven't been invited into the policy rooms for 30 years, so that's a failed project. So the obvious place to be advancing some sort of transformations that we might be committed to is working in schools themselves. So one can sort of unpack on all the sort of challenges and problems that present themselves there. So teachers we work with in our jurisdiction have received no professional learning around any one of these cousins or around improving Indigenous kids' learning for 5 years. So completely absent from schools' professional learning. So how's that going to happen if the schools aren't picking up on the professional learning needs of teachers in this regard? Probably on that one, it appears to me as though if we are committed to transforming teaching practices, which is what we are talking about here in response to what's going on in society around certain groups learning or not learning, then one of the key sites for the transformations that anyone wants is professional learning in schools.
Yep.
And in the last 30 years, under devolution logics, professional learning's been devolved to each school. So systems have given up on professional learning, apart from maybe driving some learning for their leaders to mainly to ensure they're policy compliant, actually. But when Australian researchers investigate the modalities of professional learning that dominate in schools, it's top-down, implement the system's policies, one size fits all, here's the right answer, please do it before Monday sort of approach. Again, with the teachers that we work with, they report that they aren't provided with opportunities to name their own classroom problems, and that gets to drive professional learning. Yep. So we've got a dissonance in schooling at the moment around who gets to name the problems that drive professional learning, and unfortunately teachers aren't the ones that are naming the problem. Yep. So how's that going to work for the benefit of anyone, actually? So until we can have forms of professional learning in schools that teachers get to name their problems, and in this case, I've got a culturally diverse classroom, what am I going to do? And the school coming to the party, then I don't think much is going to happen. So while some of us can run these small, very small professional learning communities across places, develop up some exemplars that others might use, there's other sort of changes that are required across the system around something as fundamental as professional learning. Yep. And again, here, backtracking even further, talking to school principals in this project, there's a lot of action going on around the edge, around Indigenous kids. So we've got this going on the edge, we've got that, we've got this money for this, blah, blah, blah. Very little talk about we need to change what we're doing in all the classrooms. Yep. And until that's the focus, again, we can do all the things around the edge, but unless classroom teaching changes, again, not much is going to happen. And so I don't know why that's so hard to understand, but there seems to be sort of a lack of focus around the key thing.
Yep.
Curriculum and pedagogy.
Yeah.
That's the key thing that's going on in schools, in the mainstream classroom, in the Year 9 class, you know what I mean? So that seems to me to be, again, you've got a lack of policy driver, and you've got sort of a very unhelpful modalities of professional learning are the key blocks.
Yeah. I think that's a good point to finish on. Thanks very much, Rob.
Thank you.